I am someone who I would say does not care a great deal about how she looks until there's a camera in front of her and she can see herself and her weird hair. I don't know why my hair does this. It's like, oh, you have ears, we should avoid them. Okay, let's try this. I hate day 2 hair, guys. Okay. I should say I hate filming on day 2, but I can't have a shower every day just because I do videos once in a while. I can't do that to my parents. And the water bill. Okay. This is as good as it's gonna get. And today, there are roofers next door. My neighbors are getting their roof done. So if you hear hammering and such noises, well, there's a good reason I have music in the background of my videos. Okay, let's continue. I feel like most people who do like Christian videos don't start every video complaining, but you know, I'm candid. I'm not hiding who I really am, and I do complain every once in a while. But let's continue, because that's really not the point of this video as usual. Okay, so we are in Easter week, and Easter is probably my favorite time of year. Maybe it didn't used to be. Probably Christmas was, just for all of the stuff going on, but Easter has become the most special part of the year, I would say, for me, because 2 years ago, I watched something on TV called The Passion New Orleans, and it is incredibly special to me. It aired on March 20th, so just recently. It was the 2-year anniversary of it, and I'm gonna do a review about it, so I'm not gonna talk about it now, but things that I learned through that have made this time of year extremely special. And I've always been sort of fascinated with the Easter story. It was always something that I would read just on my own. If there was a book about the Easter story, chances are good when I was younger I would have read it. Like, the violence and everything that happened just fascinated me as a kid, which is kind of a strange thing. But like, I mean, okay, it's funny to me because as Christian parents try to keep their children from seeing gore, and you know, they keep them away from scary things so they don't have nightmares. And yet we have this story in the Bible that talks about a man literally being nailed to something and being left to die. And this is a holiday that we sort of celebrate and we tell children about. And it's like, I'm sorry, what? This guy was horrifically murdered. We would never, ever, ever let a child watch something like that. But we have animated versions to make it child friendly. It's like, I'm sorry, what? We're weird. Christians are weird. We have like two standards, the world standards and then the Bible standards, and the Bible standards, like whatever's in there is okay, but whatever's in the world is not okay, even if it's very, very similar. It's not okay. I don't know, man, we have a double standard, but it's just funny to me. Easter is very special to me because it's a time of year where, honestly, for the past 2 years, the Easter story has been almost all that I have really thought about in terms of learning. I've soaked up every detail, and I want to learn everything there is to know about it, because I know that what happened at that time changed our world forever, and it's something that deeply affects me. And obviously on a spiritual level it affects me, but also on a personal level it's something that the story I've come to love for everything that happens in it, and I've learned a lot. And one of the things that bothers me the most is that Easter has been hijacked by the world, and we have it on our calendars, and yet the world has taken something that's supposed to be a very somber and spiritual time of year for us to reflect on what Jesus did for us, and to just thank him and to be amazed by him and to learn about it. And it's turned it into a time of year that's for children, bunnies, and with chicks and eggs, none of which relate to each other really, except for the chicks and eggs obviously, but they don't relate to a bunny. It's just so stupid. They've turned a time of year that represented our salvation and has turned it into a time for children to eat chocolate. And it's simplified it to a degree that just is sickening. I mean, you have at least with Christmas and the whole thing with Santa Claus, it's like, who cares? Because Jesus was not born on December 25th. And honestly, the time of year, except for Sundays and when we do our, Christmas church events, we really do not think about Jesus during that time of year, I don't think. Like, it's about the gifts, it's about the tree and the lights, and it's about the snow, and it's about the heartwarming feelings you have. So whatever, because to me, Christmas is not a time of year that we're supposed to set aside and think about Jesus in a manger, because that's not why he came. He came to die. We are supposed to focus on his death. We're supposed to focus on what he did for us, not what happened the night he came. And I'm not saying there's not like incredibly special things that happened in that time that we're supposed to think about. Of course there are, but we're not supposed to worship the holiday. We're supposed to worship the reason behind the holiday. And Easter especially has just been overrun by crap. And this is probably going to be my most controversial video and candid video, because Easter makes me so mad, the world's version of Easter. And I have a major problem with parents allowing their children to, like Christian parents allowing their children to do the Easter egg hunt and have the Easter baskets and do all of the Easter stuff that's just worldly. I mean, I find something really wrong with that. It's same as kind of like Halloween. We just adopt the world's traditions instead of saying, no, we're actually supposed to be very, very different from you guys. This is something we're not going to participate in, because Easter and the bunny and all that comes across as soft and fluffy and sweet and fun for children. It's fine, we adopt it. And then we, tell kids, oh, this is about Jesus. No, it's not. Like, nothing about Easter in the world's eyes is about Jesus. And it should be all about Jesus in our eyes. So I do have a major problem with parents allowing their kids to do the Easter egg hunts and all of that stuff, because it just destroys the real meaning behind the holiday, in the same way that giving gifts and buying things for people has become the true meaning of Christmas. It's not about Jesus. We say it. We have the preachers who say Jesus is the reason for the season, and saying it does not make it true. It's not true. And honestly, bunnies are the reason for the Easter season, and that is a major problem to me. Bye, roofers. Thanks. Ooh, it's gonna be silent from now on. I don't know what to do with myself. Anyways, and it's funny because when I was a kid, my mom did not want me and my sister to do the Easter egg hunts and all that stuff. And it was like, why? It's fun. Everyone else is doing it. It's just an excuse to eat chocolate. I just want to do the Easter egg hunt, please. And she was very against it. And as a kid, you think, why is my mom so mean? Why doesn't she like us? She liked us. She loved us. She wanted us to have a true view of Easter without it being, oh, you didn't leave. I'm sorry, one truck left. Apparently one guy's still on the roof. This video is all over the place. Anyways, she wanted us to grow up without the world's view of Easter, but to have an authentic view of it, I think. And I am so appreciative to her about it. She gave me a respect for the holiday that I probably, for the time of year, for what actually happened, gave me a respect for it that I probably wouldn't have had if I'd been raised with the Easter basket and all of the worldly Easter stuff. I just have a big problem with it. And probably there's going to be people who watch this who do have kids and who do the Easter egg hunts. And I'm not picking on anyone. I'm saying, I don't think that that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to adopt the world's traditions. We're supposed to stand against the world in every way that distorts the Bible, that cheapens it. And I don't know, we tend to just kind of, shrug it off because it's cute, and, that's not okay. Another thing that we tend to shrug off is, this is one of those things that the Bible is very clear about, and the world has sort of done its own thing. And that's Good Friday. Good Friday is nothing. There is no such thing as Good Friday. In terms of the Bible, Jesus did not die on Friday. And maybe this is mind-blowing to you. Maybe you think I'm making this up. But the fact is, how many times did Jesus say he would be crucified, buried, and raised on the third day? He specifically said 3 days and 3 nights. That was like a thing for him. Just as Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, so the Son of Man will be. He'll be in the heart of the earth or something like that. I don't quite remember the verse, but this was like a sign that he was putting to his disciples, and he was saying, don't worry about things, because in 3 days I'll be back. He was saying this. And please, someone who's good at math, tell me how Friday night and Saturday night equal 3 days and 3 nights. It does not work that way. There's absolutely no logic behind it, and yet people will fight against this idea of Jesus being killed on Wednesday because and there is a reason for it. Because in the Bible it says that Jesus died, that evening, and he had to be buried before the Sabbath. And of course, everyone knows that the Sabbath was Saturday. So it's understandable that people get confused because they think, okay, it has to be Friday. However, again, 3 days and 3 nights, it doesn't make any sense. And there's a really good reason for it. It just takes a little bit of digging. In the Old Testament, the Passover, well, not even in the Old Testament, but just the Jews' way of thinking, the Passover had 3 Sabbaths in that week. Which is really interesting. We don't hear about that in, Bible teaching. But I wrote it down because I researched it. I wanted to be sure of what I had. So repeatedly in the Gospels, it's said that Jesus died on the day of preparation, or preparation day. Just a few of them. John 19:14 or 2:16. John 14-16. It said in there that it's the preparation day. John 19:31, Mark 15:42, and I think there's a few other references. What that meant is they were preparing for the Passover. So that was the day before the Passover, which was the day of the Sabbath. You didn't do anything. It was not because it was Saturday. It was because it was a holy day. It was set apart. It was the Passover day. So the day before was the day of preparation. It was the day that everyone got ready because they couldn't do anything actually on the Sabbath. So maybe they did their cooking and everything. I'm not quite sure. But they did everything on the day of preparation. And then Passover day came, which would have been Thursday that year, and that was it. They didn't do anything. So they had to bury Jesus before that, because I think I read somewhere that the next 3 days were actually like holy days, Sabbaths. You couldn't do anything in. So they had to, they were probably very glad that he died quickly, because most people could have been on the cross for like 2 days. Horrible. But it was a really good thing that he died early enough, because before sunset, which I think is the start of the next day, so they had to bury him before sunset. So thankfully Jesus died at 3 p.m. on the day of preparation on Wednesday, so they were able to take him off the cross and bury him before sunset, and then they had to go and do nothing basically, which was a perfect time to mourn him for his friends and family. And the other Sabbath in the week was the first day of unleavened bread, which I think was the Tuesday, which is the day that Jesus ate his last supper with his disciples, I think. It gets, okay, I'm not a Jewish scholar, honestly. I don't know every detail, but I know that the Passover was an extremely special time to the Jews, and so they had days set apart in this week where you were to do like nothing but think about what happened. Like God told the people to like set apart time to reflect on what he did and to worship him. And so it only makes sense that it would have carried through. It's not like anything changed between the Old Testament and the New Testament. So Jesus came, and this is actually really, really fascinating to me. I believe Jesus was crucified at 9 a.m., which is, it's crazy how fast that trial went. I mean, they arrested him at night, so that would have been Tuesday night, which technically would have been Wednesday morning to them, and by 9 a.m. they had him crucified, which is just shocking, like how slow trials are nowadays. And for an innocent man, they had him dead in a few hours. Or at least they had him crucified. And so at 9 a.m., that was the time when the sacrificial lambs were killed in the temple. 9 a.m. And I don't think I'm mistaken. I think at 3 p.m. was also when they did the second batch. There's a lot of significance to the 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. and that's when Jesus was crucified and when he died. So there was so much significance to this, and that happened on a Wednesday. Then he was buried. So he was buried technically on Wednesday evening, probably before sundown. So it was Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and before Sunday, so Saturday evening, before it was sunrise and officially a new day, Jesus was raised from the dead. And then by the time early Sunday morning the women came, he was already gone. So that was your 3 days and 3 nights. And it's the only way to make sense of Jesus saying it, because if you dismiss what Jesus said and you just adopt this Friday to Saturday thing, you're invalidating Jesus. You're saying that what he said actually wasn't true and it didn't matter, which throws everything he said into question, because either Jesus was absolutely right or not. I mean, there's no in between. You have to either be completely right all the time or you're not right and you're not worth listening to. So to say just because the world tells you and your calendar says that Good Friday is the day that Jesus died, you're dismissing Jesus and saying that the world and these people who have decided on this date that they're right over Jesus. And that is a major problem. Anytime you adopt what the world says and dismiss what Jesus says, that's a huge problem. That's something you really need to worry about. You can't, anything that the world says, you should double check with the Bible. Even if the world is the church, it's still a problem, because if they're wrong, they're wrong. I don't care if it's someone that you admire incredibly much and he says something that sounds good, but it doesn't match up with the Bible. Believe the Bible. Like, never believe a preacher over the Bible. And if something in the Bible doesn't make sense, like this whole Friday Sabbath thing, it makes sense to say that Jesus died on Friday because of the Sabbath, but you have to look into it and say, okay, Jesus said he'd be dead 3 days and 3 nights, so this doesn't add up. What makes sense of it? You have to look into the Bible, the Old Testament, look into people who have looked into it, and ask people, look up online. And you know, we have so many resources now. The internet has opened up so many things. I mean, I am no scholar, and here I am telling you things because of YouTube, because I've been able to look things up and research and read the Bible, and it's amazing that we have so much at our fingertips, and yet we still just dismiss all of it because we want to agree with tradition. We don't want to rock the boat. Rock the freaking boat, guys. Good Friday means nothing, and I think it's really hard for us to like get it through our heads that we have to actually fight against what's comfortable and what's accepted in the world, because chances are really good that that's not right. There's so much that goes against the Bible that we just accept, and that is a major problem, and it's something that over the past few years I have really tried to push against, ask questions. I don't like just accepting things anymore because I've seen how many times people and calendars are wrong, and we should never go by what the world says. So I know I've probably confused some people and maybe made them mad, and that's fine, I don't care, because I would rather be right by the Bible than right by the world. So I know I've seemed kind of angry in this video, and I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that so many Christians just accept things and never look into them. And I'm not talking about like the average Joe Christian who is not a scholar and is scared to look into things, whatever, but there are so many preachers too who just adopt this because they think it, you know, it's what the world says, it's what people expect, so they go with it. But I mean, there's been people that I know who have said like, no, he died on Friday, we don't care, we're not going to research it. That is a really big problem. One sec, there's this book I'm not sure if I've mentioned it, but it's a really interesting book, The Day Christ Died. And I'm trying to see if it says Wednesday in it, but all it does is title the chapters with 3 a.m., 5 a.m., midnight, 10 a.m., 11 a.m. That does not help me. I'll get back to you if I can find this. Okay, I honestly cannot find a single mention of what day it is. Oh, that's helpful. In the early part of March. Thank you, Jim Bishop, for not being specific in here. AKA, I just can't see it when I'm rushing through it, but perhaps I can find it and I'll put it in the description if I do. Anyway, there is no one in the world, you know, past or present or future, who is never wrong besides Jesus. So everything he says, you can take his word for it. You can dig in and find, if there's something confusing, you'll find the truth because he was never wrong. I just think that's amazing. I think it's so handy to have one person in history who never lied, who was never deceitful, and was never wrong. I just think that's really cool. And everything that Jesus did had so much meaning behind it. And I bought an online course recently from a rabbi who's a Christian. He was raised with the true meanings of things. So he was raised with Jewish and Hebrew and everything. He knows the meaning behind things. So when he was introduced to the New Testament, it exploded to him because everything that he had memorized and knew from the Old Testament now made perfect sense in Jesus. And so it's like a 6-week course or something, and he's starting out, he's talking about the Passover, which is really, really interesting. I'm loving it. So I will link below where to buy and watch that because it's really cool, and I know I'm going to learn things, and maybe something that I've said I'll have to amend, but I absolutely love asking questions and learning more about Jesus because only when you learn more do you actually appreciate him more, and I'm a big fan of that because Jesus can be one of those people that you picture as a stained glass portrait. He wasn't. And when you see the living, breathing man, the human being, God, it's amazing to see all of the depth and meaning behind everything he said and did, and all of the depth about the Passover that he fulfilled is so cool. And I'm not even going to attempt to like say everything because I don't know anything right now. I know like bits and pieces, but he fulfilled so much in his death, and the fact is the 3 days and 3 nights was very, very important, and it's something that we just sweep under the rug, and we shouldn't. We should celebrate this because it was a promise, and it's something that he He did. Even dying, he kept his promise. I mean, normally if someone promises you something and then they die, you're like, well, that's the end of that. But no, Jesus actually kept his promise. I hope you enjoy this Easter week. Don't eat any Easter eggs. I'll see you next week.